right, listen up. This is the moment I've been warning you about for so long now. Trump just announced massive tariffs that could trigger a global trade war. It could send inflation spiraling out of control, and whether he means to or not, it could push the world straight into Bitcoin. We might be witnessing the biggest global trade war in history, but it might actually benefit the US. So stick around because I'm going to explain exactly what's happening right now and how it can affect you. So President Donald Trump dropped a pretty big bombshell. He announced a new round of tariffs targeting some of America's largest trade partners. So for China, a 10% tariff on all imports. Canada and Mexico, a 25% tariff on goods, including cars, steel, and food. And he made a clear warning to any BRICS nations of a potential 100% tariff if they try to move away from the US dollar. So these tariffs are part of America's first Trump's policy, with the goal of reducing trade deficit, bringing manufacturing back to the United States, and punishing countries that are a threat to the US dollar. But why is this such a big deal? There's a few things here to cover. First, China is the US's biggest trade partner, and these tariffs can affect up to $560 billion worth of imports. This tariff will primarily affect the tech sector, which is why Nvidia, Apple, and other stocks took a hit since it was announced. US citizens and maybe even the world are going to see prices increase on smartphones, laptops, because a lot of those companies rely on Chinese production. Then there's going to be a supply effect on semiconductors and microchips, which are extremely important for AI right now because China controls, guess what, 60% of global supply chains for chips. China currently does 70% of global lithium refining. Rare earth minerals, China produces 85% of the world's supply, which are used for defense and tech. Trump has put a stronger 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, which covers around $1.3 trillion in trade volume. This one could really put a squeeze on American people, as Mexico is one of the biggest food and beverage suppliers to the US. Things like avocados, tomatoes, and tequila are going to become a lot more expensive. We can't really complain about the tequila though, as it pushes people away from alcohol, and that's probably a really good thing. But one of the major effects here will be cars. Ford, GM, and Tesla have a pretty heavy reliance on Mexican supply chains, so that is definitely going to be felt within the auto industry. As for Canada, they currently supply 24% of the US steel and are the biggest suppliers of steel for the US. So what's that going to affect? Almost everything. Construction, manufacturing costs are going to increase in every aspect. One of Trump's excuses for implementing these tariffs was fentanyl. There's one issue with that logic. Fentanyl is smuggled into the US through many different ways. In regards to fentanyl, it's currently manufactured in China and then smuggled via Mexico, so it may push China and Mexico to really crack down and try to put an end to it. With the different tariffs for Canada, it could push companies to build assembly plants in the United States and start mining for natural resources that they have there, which would work out well for the American First policy. That being said, it's a big risk Trump is taking that could go either way. Maybe he's trying to turn the world into the United States. History has shown that tariffs can backfire, and if these countries retaliate, which Canada is already threatening, it could bring on a global trade war. Keep watching because I'm going to explain all of this. Trump's tariffs might sound like a tough economic strategy that's going to work out for the United States, but history shows that trade wars can backfire and trigger recessions. This could be where the world is heading. So you've probably heard about the Great Depression of 1930, but what you might not know is it was triggered by the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. It started with the US implementing tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods with the intention of protecting US jobs. Oh boy, did that backfire. 60 countries returned the favor and global trade collapsed by 65%. US exporters themselves reduced by 60%, so it just made everything worse. Completely the opposite of what they wanted. Then we got the US trade war of the 1980s. Back then, the US put tariffs on Japanese cars to protect Ford and GM. These tariffs failed because they forced Japanese companies to build factories in the United States, which is a win in some aspects. But the original goal was to protect Ford and GM. Japan just carried on dominating the market, and it didn't really protect the American auto industry. It did, however, create US jobs. It's not a complete failure. In 2002, Bush put tariffs on steel, which quickly backfired as EU, China, and Japan retaliated by imposing their own tariffs. Then the World Trade Organization ruled tariffs illegal, so the US had to back down anyways. And the most recent one was the Trump-China trade war in 2018. He imposed tariffs trying to stop IP theft from China, but then it backfired massively as it cost billions of dollars to American farmers. Whereas supply chains just shifted to Vietnam and India, where labor is cheap. See, the free market going where it's treated best. These new tariffs could trigger a much bigger trade war and affect everything. Inflation could be about to go through the frickin' roof, guys. This is where things get really interesting. If Trump implements the 100% tariff on BRICS nations, they probably won't fight back with tariffs. They could do something much, much bigger. They could completely ditch the US dollar much quicker and faster than anyone expects. They're already trying to build a new financial system. The entire global economy could shift, and Bitcoin could be the real winner here. So the US dollar is under attack, and they darn well know it. Trump's new trade rules aren't just about business, guys. They're about power. The US has been calling the shots in global finance for decades now, but the rest of the world is fighting back finally. For years, the dollar was untouchable. Countries needed it for trade, oil, and banking, but now some of the biggest economies on the planet are breaking away. That's where BRICS comes in. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries are finished playing by America's rules. Together, they represent 41% of the world's population and 31% of the global economy. They control massive reserves of oil, gold, and natural resources. And now they're working on a brand new financial system that doesn't need the US dollar at all. BRICS nations are already trading in their own currency instead of using US dollars. They're also hoarding gold at record levels, even though you can't really prove that, but that's what's on the record. They're preparing to launch a new currency backed by gold and a basket of assets, which is a direct challenge on the US dollar. If that happens, it's not good for the US dollar. Here's what really matters. When situations like this arise, it gives the free market a window to innovate, and that's a beautiful thing. This time, we've already got a solution ready and waiting. Bitcoin, Monero, Ethereum, DeFi platforms like Aave, they're all ready to go and you can use it today with zero restrictions and government can't do a thing about it. None of this is controlled by any government, it belongs to the people. Some countries like Russia are already using crypto to avoid US financial sanctions. There's a huge shift in power happening right now and the free market will go to what works. And what works? Crypto, the true financial freedom. Anyone can pick up their phone right now and interact with a blockchain. No KYC, no paperwork, nobody telling them what they can do. The main thing to think about is that governments hate financial freedom. Pretty much all of them. Yes, even the US. If BRICS moves away from the United States dollar, the US government won't just sit back and watch, guys. They will do every desperate attempt they can to protect their petrodollar. But here's the reality, Bitcoin can't be stopped. Even if the US bans it, BRICS, Latin America, and Africa will keep using it. We might be witnessing the end of the US dollar, and there's nothing Washington can do about it. This is the biggest financial shift in our lifetime, and if you want to be prepared, go to learningcrypto.com and you will see exactly what we're doing with our crypto, what we are holding to prepare for this, and how to make the most out of this current bull run. Because yes, regardless of what's happening, we are in an amazing bull market and we are going to be taking profits. So you better check out learningcrypto.com. Anyways, leave your comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what is happening. If I have this wrong, let me know. Talk to you soon.